Okay, so how we're starting.
Right?
Okay, so we're live. Okay, that's what's showing on the Zoom at the moment.
So as you go like this, you came back with nothing.
Hi, so good morning, everyone, and welcome.
Yeah, perfect.
Come on, I think you need to drop off.
All right. So we're live now, right? Yeah. Right. So good morning, everybody, and thank you for taking time to join us this morning. It's a pleasure to have everybody on for this very important and momentous meeting. It is my pleasure to introduce
Just one thing.
Okay, sorry about that. So, like I was saying, I'd like to welcome everybody to the presentation of the Youth Party legislative agenda for Eti Osa 1 local government by no other person than our candidate, Mrs. Tari Taylaur. Tari Taylaur has been a wonderful member of this party. She's been a distinguished individual who has spent several years selflessly working for the development of her immediate community, which is at Eti Osa 1. She ran on the platform of the Youth Party last year in the local government elections, where her plans for the community was clear, which was to improve the quality of the environment and to deliver quality representation to the people of Lekki at the time. Unfortunately, we didn't win those elections because of the irregularities that transpired during the process. It was a sham of a process. We petitioned the Lagos State Tribunal, but unfortunately, we're up against a system that made it almost impossible for us to get justice at the time. And moving forward from that, Mrs. Tari Taylaur has decided to offer herself yet again for the position of the House of Assembly to represent Eti Osa 1 at the Lagos State House of Assembly. This time, we are a lot more confident of her success because we want to believe that the process as conducted by INEC will be a lot more credible and transparent than the elections that are conducted by the Lagos State Electoral Commission. The accreditation process seems to be a lot more bulletproof and transparent. So the voting process and, of course, the collation of results and the transmission of same are a lot more credible than what you had at the local government elections. And so we expect an entirely different story this time around because we have, I would argue that the people of Eti Osa 1 are lucky to have Tari running on that particular ticket. And they can be rest assured that real change is not far away. So without further ado, I have the honor of bringing up stage to present her legislative agenda, after which that agenda will be thoroughly debated by executive members of the party. And of course, we'll take questions from journalists, concerned residents and citizens alike who would like to interrogate our legislative agenda and who have questions or contributions to make. So I have the honor to welcome upstage Mrs. Tari Taylaur as she comes to make a formal presentation of our legislative agenda. Please welcome Mrs. Tari Taylaur.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Can I have my slides up, please, so that we can follow? Share the screen on. Okay, so before my slides go up, let me just reintroduce myself. Here we are again. I didn't think it was going to be so soon. We contested last year at the local council elections, for the office of councillor. That's what I ran for. And the elections were in July 2021, so very fresh. We had a month to really campaign and put ourselves forward then, and I think we did a great job, in spite of the amount of time. Like Ira has already said, we went through that process. We really went into the communities and gained a lot of ground, but the elections themselves were not very conducive and didn't allow us to, sorry. Can I? Okay. Didn't allow us to shine and win as we should have. But here we are again. The problems still exist. Eti Osa is still deteriorating at a very rapid pace. The people at the helm of affairs don't seem to be catching up and being able to deliver the sort of services that you, the residents of Eti Osa, want. So here we are again. We are offering solutions and offering a plan, which is what this legislative agenda is, where that with quality representation, we can change the narrative, we can provide quality public services, we can be held accountable on everything that we put forward to you today. And it's a collaborative effort, not just with myself and of course with the Youth Party leadership and members, but also every resident, every business owner in Eti Osa 1 who is, who wants change and who wants to see it, who wants a different experience of living and working in that constituency. So the first thing that maybe you might be wondering is, what does Eti Osa 1 cover? What areas does Eti Osa 1 cover? Eti Osa 1 has 6 wards. 6 wards, Victoria Island 2, which is certain parts of Victoria Island, the sites that are closer to the land and Bishop this entire area. Then you move into Lekki, Ikate, and environs, which is the Femi Okunu, Ikate, Itedo, Ibokoshu, Nikon Town Estate, Fine Water, that whole area. Then you go further down. Yes, you go further down, and I think it's worth fine on that. So go further down. There's Elamsan Housing Estate. There's Ado, Lambasa, Badore. There's Ajas, Shongo, Tedo. So the entire area up to that point, up to the Lambasa, Ado area, and you have estates like Chevron, BGC, Chevron. Can you take this slide forward? Chevron, BGC, Osaka, London, Jakonde, Agundi, all of these are in this area. First slide, second slide. Let's start with the second slide. Okay, so I'm sure all of you who are here currently are located in any of these, any of the communities or any of the estates within that terrain, or people that are. And so we are here to All right, so let me just, once we get the slides, go back to it. Go back one. Okay, I'll just go on. So I'm running to, if you can go back one slide to the second slide. I'm running to go to the Lagos State House of Assembly. As you probably know how that operates. Lagos State House of Assembly is, constitutes of members from the different constituencies in Lagos. You know that with the LCDA system and the LG system, of course, there are 20 local governments, and then with the LCDAs, there are a lot more committees represented, all in the Lagos State House of Assembly. I'm running for Eti Osa 1. Eti Osa as a whole is divided into two, which is Eti Osa 1 and Eti Osa 2. Eti Osa 2 is more the Ikoyi or Balede, VI1 area. That side is Eti Osa 2. But we are in Eti Osa 1, and that's where I'm running to be the representative at the Lagos State House of Assembly. And what happens at the Lagos State House of Assembly? This is where laws are made. The laws that govern our lives in Lagos State. Each representative comes and the are had and bills are passed, and then there's oversight. There's oversight function as well on government agencies and all of that. So all of this happens at the state legislative assembly. That's the base, the symbol of power and authority. So this is where you can move to the next slide. I want to go and be your representative at this gathering. So why am I running for a seat? In my leadership roles and as a resident of Eti Osa 1, I am confronted daily with the challenges that characterize that area. This is from the environment. We all know the state of the environment is filthy, and it has deteriorated over the years. There doesn't seem to be any control or really implementation of the sanitation laws. There's people don't know what their responsibilities are, in terms of as a business owner or as a resident. What is by law, what is your responsibility towards the environment? And then of course we know the security issues, which is caused by a lot of youth unemployment, tons of young people just there and nobody's really engaging them and all of that. Physical planning is also an issue. You have a lot of shanties, you have a lot of abandoned places, you have people setting up businesses in residential areas, which is a major just building anywhere. There doesn't seem to be any order or coordination. So these are the challenges that are really in Eti Osa 1 at the moment. And because of my roles, my leadership roles, I'm sure you've all had a chance to read my profile, so I won't really go into my background as it is. But I hold some offices within the Lekki Residents Association. I'm the vice chair for environment in the zone. I'm also a secretary of the sub-zone, and I'm also a member of the NERA Environment Committee. But at the same time, I also engage, government agencies and all of that on behalf of, residents. So I have a full grasp of what the challenges are, what the root causes are, and the actions that need to be taken to solve, those challenges. So let me quickly run into it on the legislative agenda. Why do I want to go to the House? What will I do when I go to the House? So the first thing that I believe is very important, because a clean Eti Osa 1 is a prosperous Eti Osa 1, a clean Lagos is a prosperous Lagos. I will advocate for greater public orientation and enforcement of sanitation laws. That needs to happen. You have sound laws that govern sanitation and the environment and all of that by Lagos State, but when there is no implementation, those laws become redundant. I would push for public orientation such that even students, home occupiers, traders, wherever you are, as long as you're living within this constituency, You will know what your responsibilities are towards the environment. There will be guidelines and practices for sanitation, and we will have enforcement. People who are going to all these places and making sure that violators are, prosecuted in one way or the other, or their businesses are disrupted, or their lives in some way, so that everybody conforms to what I call the environment charter. We must have a standard. As it is right now, there is no standard. Anything goes. Everybody does as they please. But we need to establish a standard for what we want Eti Osa 1 and the entire Lagos state to be like in terms of the environment. We set the standard and we protect the standard. That's really what it's going to be. And then there are a lot of agencies from LOMA to NASEPA, Ministry of Environment, even the local government, who are responsible for public health and sanitation and all of that. Yes, they are there to some degree. They are working, but it's not as well as it should be. There needs to be more orientation, even of the officials. People need to understand the opportunities that are bound in the waste economy, and we need to make sure that these officials are enforcing the laws. So once all of that is happening, at the same time, whether from the private citizens' point of view, from the government agencies, at least there will be momentum and that collaboration, and we will get clean streets. That's a value that we all need to aspire to. We have to have clean streets. We have to be able to enjoy the environment that we live in. We have to be able to, work for our public health as a whole, because right now, what is there is unacceptable. So we need to change it. Let's move forward. So public orientation and enforcement of sanitation laws. This is the story of Eti Osa 1 and Lagos. This is a dump site that existed within a residential area, within a subzone in Lekki. So this is your street. Imagine that this is your street, and on your street there's a stretch of land that's really is a dump site and has been a dump site for years, which is that people have been dumping refuse in it. So one of the successes that I have achieved in terms of our environment work is that we identify black spots, because places like these are called black spots where there's illegal dumping and all that, and they are all around this constituency. We've identified places like this, and then, can I have the next slide? And we transform them into this. So from a dump site, people dumping refuse here, we dug out all the refuse, all the trash, and convert to gardens. This already is transformation in real time. Imagine we target all of the black spots in every location around Eti Osa 1, and we can do this. And with legislation which enforces, which strengthens and enforces the sanitation laws, places like that all around Lagos, it's just with the will to do it. These are private citizens who are able to transform that to this. So first of all, as your representative for Eti Osa 1, running the policies and with the advocacy in the House and presenting our ideas and agenda to the House, you can already see an improvement in your quality of life. We will change the things that we have gotten used to. It is wrong that anybody should live in those kind of environments, but you can have this. So that already is clear and doable before us. So going further, next slide. The next thing that I would advocate for in the House is that we work towards providing housing for the poor. Now, of course, in our budgets, in Lagos state budgets and all that every year, there is allocations towards housing, okay? But usually we're catering for working class housing. Oh, you're a worker, you want to be able to have a house and pay for it in the long term and all that, which is great and which is fine. Everybody should have access to affordable housing. But we're not doing enough for the poor. We're not doing enough in providing some sort of housing arrangements for the poor. And this translates to a lot of homeless people living on our streets. In Eti Osa 1, I can take you to specific streets that have become people's homes in that sense over time. They're living on the streets, they're using the toilets on the streets, they're having their bath on the street, they just live on the streets. So as much as you try to clean your environment, you are really not achieving anything for as long as you are having people that are, messing the streets up as you are doing that. And it would interest you to know that 70% of Lagos population live in these circumstances. Yeah, 70%, 14 million people in Lagos live like this, in shanty communities with no adequate sanitation facilities. That is a shame. That is unacceptable. So drawing from the problems and the reforms that I know specifically to Eti Osa need to be put in. One of the things that we need to, can you move forward one slide? One of the things that we need to address is, rather than right now, the relationship, what the government and the Ministry of Physical Planning and Urban Development do is that they come and crush those sort of shanty towns. But you cannot criminalize a need. You have to understand why those shanty towns exist in the first place. They exist because many people can't afford housing that's provided by the government or by private sector. And secondly, a lot of people come to work in Lekki and parts of Eti Osa, for example, and they live very far away, maybe in Berga or whatever, and they can't afford the housing options available. But those shanties provide them a place where they can lay their head, cheap, affordable, and without any sanitation facilities. They're just trying to survive. So that's why those places like those shanties are thriving in Eti Osa. But here's a solution. What does it take to build a community of these sort of homes, these sort of transitionary homes? Can we stay on that side, please? On that slide. What does it take to build this where you're somebody who is working in Lekki and you live in Berga? During the week, you come and you live in these hostels, these transitionary hostels where you can, but it's affordable, it's clean, there's proper sanitation, and you can pass through over time. And also the people who are homeless on the streets, we can take them in, train them, give them skills, over time be able to provide jobs for them. But the most important thing is that we're taking people off the streets and giving them a place where there's some level of dignity, where there's sanitation facilities, there's a place to lay your head, and we're controlling the level of vagrancy and people that are just on the street and not really up to anything or being engaged, which is also a security threat to people that are living and working in that area. So I see a situation where we, at the State House of Assembly, we insist that a percentage of the budget for housing every year is allocated towards providing these sort of accommodations for poor people. Because for as long as we don't address the poor people, we are, nothing we do really is going to yield any sustainable benefits because we're not addressing the root issues. So that's what we are proposing regarding innovative housing for the urban poor, which is a very important demographic if you're thinking of development in a mega city like Lagos. Next slide, please. So youth employment and skill acquisition is also big because, like I said, it's really about engaging the tons of, there are thousands of young people that are just literally, they're not doing anything. That's a security risk right there. Now that they've banned Okadas, what is going to happen to all those people who are now jobless? What are we going to do? That's our security, being threatened. So a lot of government policies that need implementation, whether on the environment level or whether through whatever form, need people who will work these jobs. So, for example, let me share the model we have that we have implemented in different parts of Lekki, with you. And
is that the PP?
Next slide, please. I think there's a hacker on our Zoom call. So maybe the host can, maybe the host can find out who this hacker is and put the person out. I apologize for whatever you may be seeing on your screen. Okay, but you see this, these guys. These guys work for a zone in Lekki. Basically, what happens is that every other day they resume work. Like today, they have resumed for work. They are all allocated a street, and on the streets, they are responsible for keeping the streets and the gutters clean. And they earn up to 25, each one of them earns up to 25,000 naira a month. These are from people who were idle and not doing anything, earning 25,000 naira a month. And, you know, there's supervision, there's accountability. Sorry about what's going on, I'll just continue. Okay, so we want to amplify this. Like I said, this is already working in Lekki. I have been part of the running of this model, you know, for the last, since 2020, in September 2020, where we started. And this has been this one sustainable way of keeping those streets where we have implemented this model clean. So we have, you know, have had teams that have gone through that, and they have really earned their money, and the value, the direct value that we've had is clean streets and employment for our young people.
Can we go to the next slide?
Yes, please. Yes, go to the next slide. Move to the next slide. So on youth and employment and skill acquisition, we see a situation where we are engaging every single young person who is unemployed, whether by providing training or providing jobs. But one thing that we know is that under a youth party representation, Eti Osa one is not going to have young people just laying about. We're going to, you know, engage them and make sure that we're building capacity, and capacity to solve problems in Eti Osa one. We need to be able to raise people, train people, and then find the unique problems that are unique to communities in Eti Osa one, and have our trained people, you know, with jobs solving those problems. So it's something that, you know, is very possible, it's very doable, but we need to take ownership. We need to take ownership of these problems, and we need to deploy the solutions that are local to Eti Osa one. And I believe that we will achieve very much in doing that together. So, well.
How do we close this?
Okay, so we have a hacker that I think is trying to mess up my slides.
Hello, admin, please, can you hear me? Can I suggest, can you enable me as co-admin so that I can handle them?
Can we stop sharing slides and then start again?
Yes, you can stop sharing the slides. Yes. And then you need to make somebody else, one of the youth party members, make somebody a co-host. Make one of your members the co-host. Because I can see there's only one person as a host there.
Okay. Victoria, can you share the slides again, please? Okay. Are we able to share the slides again?
I said, can we make somebody else a co-host so the person is in charge of
in a nutshell, that's my presentation. We're going to go into the interactive session now, where you know, we will engage on these plans and what we want to achieve and all, and how, which is very important. How are we going to accomplish, you know, all of this? And so before I move on, so one question that everybody always asks is, how can we support you? So, well, number one, you can mobilize. First of all, I'm sure you have your PVC and you can vote, and you can also mobilize everybody that you know that is within Eti Osa one to identify their polling stations and come out and vote. Everybody, each one of us needs to be a canvasser, which is we make sure that on election day in March and building up to that time, everybody comes out to vote. I believe that if we who are of this new mindset and of this new way of thinking, and want to see the new possibilities abound in our constituency. If all of us who are of like mind actually come out and vote, we will have the majority and we will be able to change the situation in Ethiopia. The other way that you can support is by making donations to the campaign. You know, like we have about 8.5 months to the election, and we have to go to the farthest ends of Etiosa one and build our message and make sure that it reaches everyone very well, very aggressively. So you can support and make a donation to Taylor Tari Campaign Fund. Anything you can do, you donate will go a long way, and we have 8 months, so you can make a plan of how you want to donate and support us. So yes, that's my presentation. We will now engage with the other members of the panel. Thank you very much.
That's what happened. I went for a Zoom meeting. They can just see. Somebody said, when is this terrible presentation over? So it's going to be an IO now. Okay. I think it needs to be an IO.
Okay, so we are going to move now to the interactive session, and joining us on this panel, of course, is the chairperson of the Youth Party, Mr. Tomiwa Alani-Kwamo. It's a privilege to have you on this panel. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
We also have joining us Mrs. Yadu Gbadebo, who has been a wonderful member of this party and who is a PR and marketing executive. It's a pleasure to have you on this panel.
Thank you for having me.
So yes, we're going to ask you, Mrs. Taylor, a few questions. And of course, I understand that the panel can also ask you a few questions and also engage a few of your policy proposals. So let me start by asking Mr. Tomiwa, first, which of these legislative agenda resonates with you, President, and which do you think is an urgent priority for people living in Tiosa axis, where you also reside?
I think the ability to look at the state and to look at your environment and to create solutions for the actual environment we live in is really, really important. So I like a lot of the proposals around building public facilities for people in the Eti Osa axis who are homeless or who live in squatter communities. One of the challenges with Lagos State is that it often approaches things from this mega city ambition perspective, which means that it doesn't provide real facilities for the people that live on the ground. And so if you have people living in squatter settlements, it's not enough to destroy the settlements and ask them to disappear, because they don't disappear, they come back. It's to build a city, understanding that there will always be some people living below the means of acquiring a proper apartment or a proper house. And how do you build an on-ramp for them to go from living in squatter settlements to more settled environments. While they are still squatting, what are the sanitation facilities? What are the opportunities for them to find balance and to not destroy the environment further while they build themselves up to a location, to a place where they can live in more settled environments, they can rent their own spaces. So a lot of the things around building facilities, whether it's sanitation, whether it's healthcare facilities for homeless people, absolutely, or squatter communities are absolutely critical, as well as the innovative housing solutions. We need all kinds of low-cost housing solutions. And we need to continue to experiment with them. We need to continue to build more so that people have an opportunity to go from unsettled environments into more settled setups. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. This is valuable. I realized that you were nodding your head approval when the panel was speaking about innovative housing for the young poor. Might I assume that that is what interests you the most, or you find other of our proposals rather urgent? Which of them, which of them ticks for you the most?
I'm indeed in approval. I believe that the most important and vulnerable assets of our community are the ones that we usually almost forget about. I was listening to her when she was reading out the numbers. 70% of them are homeless, and that's the sad reality of our situation. Every day driving through Lekki, going to work and coming back, you find all of these people around your cars, you find them on the roadside, and you wonder that, the current dispensation, seems to forget that this is something that isn't going away, that they're here knocking on doors, asking you for money politely. And sometimes they get given, sometimes they don't. Most times you only see anybody who's showing them love and attention every new election cycle. And that's worrisome, because one day they're going to knock on your doors, and if you don't find a solution to this problem, then it becomes a problem that, will become a major problem for you in achieving anything that a decent government sets out to achieve. So it is a problem that needs to be solved. And I did like her solutions, the solutions that she preferred, in saying that provide these people a temporary sort of accommodation that's decent, that is humane. So, you don't find them sleeping on streets and in the tunnels of your link bridges, and if you find a solution for them while you're doing that, I've had several conversations with Tari, and one of the things that she had said is that she would also ensure that these people are not just provided a place to lay their heads, but, in the daytime, you find, skill acquisition, teach them something that helps them to self-sustain so that they're not, fully dependent on these shelter accommodations that you have provided for the short term, so that they can, find a stop gap, in providing a more lasting solution to their lack of employment, lack of a roof over their heads. So yeah, I'm in agreement, I guess that's the answer to your question.
I think we'll also have to request the chairperson of Youth Party Lagos, Mr. Lagos, to join this conversation. But before I bring him up, I would just like to ask the candidate an important question, which is, I like the idea of innovative housing, a temporary shelter for the poor. But have you factored in what it will cost to actually implement this project, and how government is going to raise the resources to do that?
I think that it can be managed by the private sector. I don't even think that government literally has to build these developments. We have a lot of real estate developments that, I mean, everywhere you turn now, that is a sector that is booming. But I don't think that even that sector is catering enough for the poor, or we're not looking at them as a potential, market. But if you look at the model that those people who manage the shanty towns are currently operating, you will see that it is quite a lucrative, because that is why the shanty towns are thriving. They collect rent from these people who come and live in those circumstances, and there's a lot of turnover. Like you can pay 80,000 a year or 100,000 a year to live in those circumstances. So if we are able to create models of housing where those people or people who are in those circumstances can pay a stipend, it would have to be what's the word? It would have to be sorry, I'm missing a word here, subsidized on some level, whether by those who are investing in the model, or that's when the government will come in. But it's a solution that we cannot turn our eyes away from, because right now, what you have is nothing. So if we build on that and take that one step, then we can critique it, we can try the model, we can test the model, even for profitability, and also, how sustainable it's going to be. But I think that the government does not have to invest in building those housing models. Private sector, I believe, can step up. And also a lot of, charity organizations, churches, mosques, religious, we can all come together. I believe we can all come together and collectively solve this problem.
Okay, thank you for that. Thank you for that answer. Let me quickly go to Taylor has spoken quite passionately about creating housing, spoken quite passionately about creating employment opportunities for young people and skills that drop down. In fact, as a measure of dealing with insecurity, given that Okadas have been banned at this particular point in time. She's also spoken very passionately about sanitation law, something that she has worked on, for at least a good part of the decade. Which of these agendas speaks to you directly, and which you want to see happen at such speed that will impact the skills of local government profoundly?
Okay, thank you very much. So as a stakeholder in Eti Osa, because I live in Eti Osa, I actually live in the same zone as Ms. Tari Taylaur. I think one of the bigger concerns is the clean environment. I think the housing is also a big problem, but the most important one that needs to be addressed, and it needs to be addressed like yesterday. And the problem we have is that the current government or the current legislators seem to forget the moment they get elected, they move into Banana Island, right? Where it's gated, it's closed, it's managed, there's a lot of money there. And they leave the voters in the slums. So we need to find a way, and I believe that the only way you can do it, because the legislators are also responsible for the local governments. They have oversight function because they are the representative of the people. They are the people in the government. So I think, for starters, that is a very key, important problem that we need to solve. And the way to solve it is through the legislators, because they are the ones that represent the people. They have to scream and shout to the local government chairman, to the councillors, to the heads of agencies, scream and shout, kicking, listening to the people, and ensuring that they do their job. Currently, the way the state is run, it's almost run as a private enterprise. And I think the legislators have left it to be run as a private enterprise. We need to turn it back into a public enterprise. And that's where the House of Assembly comes into, which is the key elective office that we need to focus on.
Thank you, Mr. Derrick, for that point. Mrs. Taylor, I'd like to also ask you very quickly, you talked about creating job opportunities for young people, in Eti Osa. What kind of job opportunities are you looking to create? And how do you intend going about it? Are you going to lean in on the executive government? Are you going to propose a legislation to the executive on a particular outcome that can create jobs for young people? Or are you going to work directly with the private sector or other stakeholders to create jobs for young people? Are you going to attract industries or whatever to that particular place to create jobs? How do you intend going about your job creation agenda? And if you could put in numbers, how many jobs do you think your legislation can create over, I'd assume, your first 4-year period?
Okay. I think that we can effectively engage. And remember that it's not only job creation, it's job creation working hand in hand with skill acquisition. I feel that in the first 4 years, we can engage up to 2,000 young people at the least, yes. And this is by, taking advantage of our low-hanging fruits. I shared with you what is already going on, where there are already young people who are responsible for streets in Lekki. Imagine a situation where every street in Lekki is manned by a young, formerly unemployed person who will now be earning about 25,000 naira a month. That's already up to 200 jobs. If we can have that model kick off and amplified in Lekki alone, that's already 200 jobs, active jobs, real jobs that are providing income for those people and their families. And this is also going on with skill acquisition. Now, it's a multi-strategy approach. It's not one way. We have to engage the private sector. We have to engage the development, finance, institutions. We have to engage the residents and business owners in Lekki, in Eti Osa, to take responsibility for the environment in which they operate. We have to engage everybody who is interested in seeing development happen. It's not something that is left for the government alone. Like Yadini said, if we all sit back and do nothing, it's a time bomb situation. Things are really going to implode or explode, however you want to put them, if we don't take responsibility. So we would approach it from everywhere. Everywhere we can find partners to work with, we will take advantage of those opportunities. And I have to say that this is the advantage of having a constituency office within the constituency, because it keeps our fingers on the pulse of the communities, and we can work to make sure that all these are being implemented, and we can track our progress, as we go along, to see the degree to which we are making an impact in the lives of our constituents.
Okay. Let me also say that you can send in your questions from Zoom.
Deji is already raising his hand. So.
Okay, Mr. Akipelu, if you want to ask a question, okay, yes, you're on camera, you can ask a question.
Am I audible? Can you hear me? Can you hear me at all?
We can't hear. He needs to raise his voice.
Okay, I'm raising my voice. Can you hear me now?
Loud and clear, loud and clear.
We can hear you loud and clear. You might be from Tari's end.
Okay.
Yes,
Tari,
we can hear you.
congratulations on you coming forward and stepping
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Yeah, so a quick contribution. My name is Eti Osa, co-founder of Rethinking Cities, and we've practically been engaging young politicians on these issues. And I'm very grateful that Tari was able to speak to the housing situation in the city of Lagos. And I hear questions about how is it possible to provide these homes. There's the concept of cross-funding, whereby you're going to take funding from one area, from one project to another, to make social housing affordable. So you're building your luxury home in Banana Island. I don't have a problem with that. You're building your luxury home in the Core Atlantic. I don't have a problem with that. But what cross-funding are you going to?
There's sort of, sorry, Deji, sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah, what's the problem? You can't hear me? Hello?
Loud and clear.
Okay. I thought she said there was something, there was a problem. Yeah. So the kind of legislation we should be looking at is the legislation in terms of cross-funding. So if you're building a luxury home, a certain percentage of the expense or the cost should be cross-funded into social housing. That are practical ways for us to establish this kind of funding to take place. And she was talking about also the home rental situation in some of these communities.
Sorry, I have to interrupt. Okay. Sorry, Deji, can you run your question again? We had a bit of a echo and on your question. Can you just quickly summarize your question for us?
Okay, it's a comment that to achieve this housing need that you're talking about, that it is not far-fetched. We just need legislation that encourages cross-funding. We'll be able to provide these homes. So if you're building luxury homes in Banana Island, in Eco Atlantic, there's no problem with that. But a certain percentage of whoever is purchasing these houses from these areas, part of the funds can be cross-funded to provide these houses for the poor in the city. The same thing applies to waste management. The same young people that we're talking about who are being engaged to pick up waste on the streets. The people who produce this waste, for instance, plastic, there is the EPR law, extended producer responsibility, that compels these companies who produce this waste to pick up this waste by themselves. We are supposed to charge them. There is a legislation that should support that. The present government has just been romancing these laws and they're not utilizing it to fund waste management. And we will be happy if the Youth Party could take up this as part of its manifesto fully, that proper funding will be sorted from producers of plastics to make sure that these things go off the street. Thank you.
I think that Yes, thank you, Mr. Akinpelu. I think that every other person that needs to ask a question should please. So every other person that wants to ask a question can just type it in the chat box and we'll read out the question because we're struggling with echo here. We're struggling with the feedback here. So if you have a question, just type it on the chat box and we'll read your question out and I'm sure that the candidate will address the question.
Okay, so from what I could gather from Deji's question, I could see that you were referring to using recycled products or waste materials or converted plastics to build some of these innovative housing for the urban poor. I am completely with you on that. Which is I was asking earlier how we needs to be on silent. How we intend to raise the funding for these housing projects. And I think that if we build a waste economy, which is a recycling and conversion processes, we can use a lot of the processes, the products we get out of that to build and to create solutions within Eti Osa. So I think that is a great idea and it's something that we should definitely look into, in helping us address some of these challenges, particularly in housing. Okay, Ayo, next we'll take it from.
Okay. I think Mrs. Badibo wanted to ask a question or maybe a contribution for so please, I'll take your question or contribution.
Oh no, I was just going to add to what Tari was saying in terms of getting private organizations to also sort of spearhead these things. At the moment, you have a lot of companies around your constituency, corporate organizations in and around the vicinity of your constituency. And I don't think that the problem that we currently have with this group of people is a problem that's peculiar to only the residents. I think that the corporate people are also victims of the same fate. And just to say that if you took these people out of the street and provided better living conditions for these people, you'd be adding value to the corporate people's lives as well. The companies would have a better environment for them to run their businesses. And so, in training and sort of trying to get these people to develop themselves individually for the collective good, you're actually helping the entirety of the market, where private individuals and corporate people alike. And yeah, that was just what I was going to add, to say that, they would also benefit from it. And if you give these people some sort of skill that they can even be employable by the corporate people as well, at the end of the day. So yeah, this is just what I wanted to add, to say that it's a collective effort. And I'm not one to, I think personally, I've gone past leaving everything to government. We know where we are, leaving things to government. We have to take, matters into our hands in solving the problems that we have in this country. And leaving it all to the government is not going to help, it's not going to help anybody. And that taking it out of the government, helping the government, supporting the government by, individually doing what we can do and collectively with corporate people doing what we jointly can do, that would reduce the burden on the government, and we'll start to see better results faster. Thank you.
I need to ask you this question because you definitely do have a very, very good legislative agenda. But would you say these are very nice agenda that you want to pursue because you consider them important? Or do you think that the majority of your constituents see these issues that you're championing as the most pressing issues for them? During your consultations and engagements, do you find that the environment is a problem for them, that unemployment is a problem for them, and that those are the issues that they want government to tackle?
Absolutely. So I have by the privilege of being in leadership roles within the Lekki Residents Association, I have engaged, and also by my last campaign, which was last year, I've done a lot of engagements. And Eti Osa is a very diverse, constituency where you have what you might call the affluent, people who may live in private estates and all that. And you have a lot of these more lower income communities all living side by side. So there are different needs and for the different demographics that exist within Eti Osa. And when it comes to innovative housing for the poor, one key demographic that I engaged with during my last election cycle were the shanty towns, people that live in the shanty towns. And as I was proposing to be their councillor, to be their representative, one of the things that they always said to me is, what are you going to do about the fact that the government comes all the time to destroy our homes? Because those shanties, however you look at it, have become their homes. And I said to them that I would be honest with them. I can't just say I will stop the government from coming to do that. We have to address it from the root cause situation. And the root cause is that you need a better place to stay. You need a better community to live in, which is the situation. So I feel that if we can provide better options for a lot of these people that are living in those shanty circumstances, it's carrying them forward. As a government, as a representative, I believe that it is our duty to lift people out of poverty. And lifting people out of their poverty is also changing their circumstances, being able to show them that there is a better way. There are possibilities of life to be better for everyone. And also, so in engaging with other demographics, I know that the poor physical planning is a major issue. I know that the security is a major issue. And what I am proposing for security is engaging the unemployed people who are causing a security threat. So I have engaged and consulted quite widely, and these come up. And also by, like I said, the leadership roles that I occupy, I have been able to address some of these challenges, which I have now come to know that only legislation and implementation of certain laws will be able to get us the progress that we need in addressing them.
A lot of people work very closely with you during local government elections when you ran for council, and many of them anticipated the electoral process for the first time, largely because of you. You inspired them to want to participate. But unfortunately, we were met with rigging, violence, all sorts of irregularity. How prepared are you to deal with those irregularities in the coming election, and how are you preparing your foot soldiers to be better prepared mentally, psychologically, to deal with the challenges that come with taking on an incumbent, particularly from the ruling party in Lagos State?
Yes. So I am grateful for that experience. I'm grateful that it's even very recent. This was last year that we did that. And like you said, the elections were very flawed. And, we learned a lot from that process, because we saw it right through to the end, even in court and all of that. So there's a lot of takeaways that we were able to gain from it. First of all, the umpire has changed. In the local government elections, the umpire was the Lagos State Electoral Body, which is LASEC. Now we have INEC conducting these elections, and we feel that there is a bit less bias in that sense, with a different umpire. So we believe that that's an advantage. And also, not that we're saying that we expect it to be a completely smooth ride because it's INEC, absolutely not. But it's a step, it's a much more level playing field than what we experienced before. And in terms of our foot soldiers and taking having good representation at the polling units, we've also I can't share all of our strategy to that extent now. It's a public platform, but we have learned a lot. I will say we know some of the tactics that are employed by our opponents in an election on election day to kind of suppress votes and create instability so that people are not able to cast their votes freely. So we know some of those tactics, and we have our comebacks. We have our ways that we seek to counter some of those, some of the playbook, which we believe will be used against us. So we're a lot more prepared. And most importantly, I think we have a lot more time. Like I said before, the last elections, we had literally 1 month, and we gained a lot of momentum in that 1 month. Imagine what we would do in 8.5 months, with right structures in place. I believe that we will capture the hearts of the people of Eti Osa and be able to show them that we are offering a better deal, because that's what we're offering, a much better deal than what they have now. We have a plan, we have the drive, we have the numbers, we have the vision. Right now, I cannot say that Eti Osa people can boast of having that in their representation. What we are bringing is a new experience of what it means to be represented at the state legislative arm. Thank you.
Have you considered the challenges you would face working with legislators in the House of Assembly who are not members of your party, who are likely to be hostile to your ideas, who wouldn't want you to shine because you belong to a completely or entirely different political party? Have you thought about that and how you're going to? I give an example. There's a member of the Lagos State House of Assembly who was a member of the opposition party who got suspended for demanding transparency on the floor of the House. He got suspended for several months, was intimidated, and all of those things. have you considered what it would be like in Lagos the House Assembly when you have to champion many of these agenda against members of the opposition party who want to maintain status?
Yes, absolutely. It was the same consideration when I was thinking of when we're working to go into the local council. I don't necessarily look to go in to rock the boat. I believe I'm going in with a collaborative mindset, believing that with the right, which ideas and policies that every right thinking person in leadership should align with. So I'm not coming and proposing anything that, is not in favor of even the constituents in my colleagues, who they represent. We're here for progress. We're here for pushing new ideas to make the people's lives better. So, and I have a very collaborative spirit. When I go into any environment, I am looking for people to work together. So I understand that there may be this party politics and all of that which is in place, but part of my job in going there is in, making a lot of across the aisle, collaborations that would result in the public good, in the general good of all of our constituents, whether Eti Osa 1, Eti Osa 2, or whoever it is. And I don't believe I'm going in there as a lone ranger. As by God's grace, I would have the support of the people of Eti Osa constituency who are sending me to represent their interests. So I'm not alone. I'm going in with everybody who is present here and the support of and their support. I'm going in with the youth party, support as well, where we recognize the possible threats that we face being a minority party operating in the majority. And I think that we have to be ready to address these challenges when they come aboard and have a winning strategy so that we go into the House and we're also adding value to the House and the structure of the House of Assembly as it is. So that is my thinking in doing this. And I believe that with the right attitude, with the right plan, and with the right support, we can achieve whatever we set our hearts to.
Okay, so I'll read a comment. I'll ask you one final question and I'll allow the panelists to have
final word. Yeah.
So there's a comment that says, does the party have a record of the number of votes which the last Eti Osa 1 representative received in order to win the 2019 election? I think it would be beneficial to attack the election with a target number of votes in mind, then mobilize with that number as the goal. Yes, that's a comment. I think what he's trying to say is if we have data on what the previous representative won, so we can use that as a benchmark.
Yes.
To win the last election. So I think my final question to you is, against all odds, why have you relentlessly decided to continue to run on the platform party, rather than simply join the bandwagon of the APC or the noisy neighbors in the PD?
Okay, so to answer your first question, yes, we do have data. We do have access to those numbers, to those figures, and we are working with them in our planning and in our projections. It's we within the youth party here in Eti Osa, we believe that it is us getting that seat is achievable. We have reviewed what we need to do, the numbers we need to get, and the strategies we need to employ to get that number of voters. And we believe that it is very well within our reach, but we cannot do it alone. We need you, each and every one of you present here, and all of your networks. We need you all to work with us. We need you all to see this as our victory is your victory. It's a collective victory. Because like I said in my presentation, when you vote in 2023 elections, you're not necessarily voting for a personality. You're not necessarily voting for a personality or a party. You are voting for new ideas, a new mindset. So wherever you see those mindsets in play, you need to, support, and not just in your voice, but in your actions, mobilize everybody you know to come out and vote, and we will be assured of victory then. Now to the second question as to why I have stuck with Youth Party and not gone over to our friendly neighbors, even if I may have had the opportunity to. It's simple. I find like minds here. And I recognize that I cannot go out as a lone ranger to achieve these things that we want to achieve. No, we have to be a whole tribe of people who are seeking to achieve and implement these agendas. And I have found those like minds in Youth Party. We have gone through one election cycle together. I trust the party leadership. I trust the members of the party, and we work well together. So I think I stand a better chance of. It's not about just getting the seat or winning for the sake of winning. If we win, then what is our plan for governance? What is our plan for implementing the policies that we are pushing forward? I cannot do that all by myself. When we win, we are just going to be crossing over into, the next phase of our victory, which will be governance, which will be representation. And it's a whole community. We need as many people to be on board to be able to do that. So I've stuck with the Youth Party because I even believe in the overall vision of the party and what the party is trying to do and how the party is accomplishing and completely demystifying the political process. Because before I became active, in politics, it might have frustrated me. I might have been completely discouraged by if I had to go through the way it is done in the other parties. But I think that Youth Party giving this credible platform that does everything by the book and respects internal democratic processes, to me, it's a better way of doing things, and I would rather stick with that.
Thank you very much. Very brilliant. And I can only but wish you the best in your coming elections, and of course, you have the assurances of the party's leadership to do the best to ensure that you get elected. So before we round off, I'll give a minute and a half to all our distinguished panelists to give a passing comment before we wrap this up. So I'll start with
Well, Tari, I suppose that this is for you. I am extremely proud of you. First of all, as a woman who's resilient, who is strong, who is focused, who is dedicated on the mission to make a personal change in the narrative of our country's future and fortune. I think that in a time when our world and our country suffers a death of real role models, especially as women, that you are a light and you are hope. And I hope that you will continue and not get disenfranchised. You will not get frustrated, because the system in place in our country is designed to keep you that way. I hope that the grace of God will continue to be upon you, and you will continue to do all of these things that you do, putting yourself forward in service to your country. And I would take this opportunity as well to speak to the rest of us who are mostly on the fence. Some people actively doing what they can individually to make a change. Spectators who don't have a particular place that they're for or against, but just go with the wind and go with the tide. I would like to remind each and every one of us that even if you don't have the strength of conscience to do something for yourself, think about your children and think about their children and think about their children, and say to yourself that if your parents, your mother and your father complained about the same things that you are complaining about and that their parents complained about in their time, that not doing anything is actually the biggest problem and the biggest disservice that you'll be doing to yourself, to your children, and to your generation. And if you do not have anything to lose and have one thing to gain, have a legacy that leaves and supersedes you. And I thank you, Tari, for being that one person who is putting herself forward in channeling something that gives us a semblance of true change. I thank the members and the management and the leaders of the Youth Party. I'm not a politician by any means. I'm a citizen of the country, a country that I love and I honestly would fight for. And I hope that we can all, come together and stop being just a social group of people who talk about the problem socially. But let's do something. Let's actually do something. Here's an opportunity to do something to make an actual change. Thank you very much, Tari.
Thank you very much, Mr. Duregos, the chairperson of the party.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. Okay, so I think I see this 2023 election as a game changer. I think there's an opportunity here for us to rewrite the course of our history. With the passing of the new Electoral Act, it's in the first time in our history where electronic means of accreditation is going to be at play. It means that the structure of rigging will disappear. And we must now take this opportunity to come out en masse to vote for the people that are going to represent us. I believe Tari she's a member of the community. She's already doing the groundwork. It's not going to be easy. It's going to be, we need a lot of people along the way. We're all going to have different opinions. But there's one thing that we must all remember, like Mrs. Badibo said, we must bequeath something to our children. The Youth Party believes in us shaping the future. And that's the key. We need to shape the future. We cannot be living in this world and not shape the future of the generations unborn. We need to shape that environment. We need to clean up Eti Osa. Clean up Eti Osa means that Eti Osa needs to be the model constituency within Lagos. Part of Eti Osa where you have new developments. There's a new master plan coming up for Eti Osa. It's under review. We need to look at these things now and offer quality representation. And we believe that the Youth Party, its candidate, Ms. Tari Taylaur, will represent the people of Eti Osa, the good people of Eti Osa, more than the past administration. So thank you very much for joining. And we would like that you join us again when we call on you to come and listen to our plans for shaping the future of Nigeria Youth Party. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Duregos. Finally, to wrap this up,
Thank you, Ayo. Good afternoon. Thank you to everybody who's joined us today. Thank you for taking the time. Thank you for your interest in Nigeria. Thank you for your interest in Youth Party and Tari's campaign. I'd like to thank Tari particularly for your bravery, for your consistency, for your diligence in running for office for Lagos local government, and now for House of Assembly. We need more people to take up this challenge, to care enough to put themselves forward. I particularly thank you for the work that you've already done. When people come and run for office, often it is with their own interests at heart. And it's important that when we come and run, people can see the track record of the work that you've already done, that the issues that you speak about are things that you have already put your hands to. And I think that's always been clear with Tari. I think it's why the response to her campaign for Lagos in the local government elections was so strong and so positive and so vibrant. Till tomorrow, many people cannot tell you the name of the person she ran against because they didn't feel the need to campaign. And we can tell that if not for the election practice that we saw, there was a very, very strong chance that Tari would have won that election. I believe that the vibrance of our message, sincerity of our purpose will carry through in this election as well. And I pray that Mr. Doriego's prediction in terms of the ability to run a cleaner election will carry her to victory. It's important to have sessions like this where we talk about policy, where we talk about legislation, where we talk about what it is that our candidates and future political leaders actually mean to do in office. Far too often, people win office and disappear until it's time to wear agbada and gele and campaign again. And you cannot tell what they've done for 4 years or 8 years or as many years it is as they've stayed in office. And so it's critical for us to be able to have forums like this to ask, what is it that electoral office people who are contesting intend to do when they get into office, and then to hold them into account when they get into office for what it is that they actually get done. So thank you, Tari, for initiating this, and thank you all who have spent the time to listen. The final point I want to make relates to Ayo's question about why we do this, why Tari is running on the Youth Party, and why the Youth Party continues to push the agenda that we have. Many people looking at the level of our exclusion from these elections, INEC's various attempts to exclude us from the election will say, you people, set this thing aside, go and join the big parties, stop wasting time on these things. But I think there have been some very, very important lessons over the last week. As you've watched disenfranchisement of political players systematically within the major parties, you've seen the same money politics. You've seen people who have great promise be sidelined. You've seen people who, by the counting, by public record of their counting, have won and then be disenfranchised within their own party. And that's why the Youth Party continues to do this, because those parties do not represent a democracy that works. They don't practice internal democracy. They don't care for your vote. They don't care for any kind of process that makes sense. And so you must have parties like ours that continue to fight for an open democratic space, for the ability of people to contest and to be able to have a fair space to express new ideas, to push the country forward in new ways. And that's a critical task that we cannot rest at. So thank you all who have joined us today. Thank you all who are members of the party. Thank you all to the leadership of the party for the great work you do. Again, thank you to Tari, to Yadrini, to Mr. Shani Regos. Thank you all for your support and for the work that you do. Within the chat, we've dropped the links to Tari's campaign account. Please donate and support. We've also dropped the Youth Party campaign account. Please donate and support. And more importantly, lend your time, lend your energy to the work that we do. We appreciate you. God bless you. Youth Party, shape the future. Shape the future. Thank you, everyone.
All right, thank you, everyone. The meeting has ended. Thank you very much for all attending. We could all share your ideas on the those of us in Youth Party and the Youth Party platforms. Let's all get involved and let's take Eti Osa back. We will end the meeting in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.